Ndị be anyị ngwadalụ dị nnenu anyị si ka ụbọchị nkịta mana na anyị na mma anyị si ka nkonye chiri ya zelụkwa dịka o si dị ya bụ Eastern News 24 ka anyị si wee na-ewetara ya bụ ozi nje gị n'ugbu a gbasịta maka ya bụ ife na-eme na Eastern Region and the entire nation. Please pay attention to this update anyị ji maka ya wee bịa n'iru akwụkwọ n'ụbọchị uruchi nkịta. Alright, ozi ewetara unu bụ according to the Biafran activist wetara ya bụ ozi as he quote.
Breaking news still on the matters on the freedom of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, an upcoming court case, as a prominent Nigerian lawyer dropped a bombshell on what is about to happen in October 10, being Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's court day hearing for the final judgment. Hear the news in details. All right, umunem biko, pay attention to this clip. Ajimakia webeni wakuwa achonkoyom na tusaya bozi. Oh, the lawyer that shocked me. In fact, Gaya be Gesia get to Sayabozi, Kumuna nebe dichiche, over the Tahante. Over to you, sir.
That is now happening within the southeast, and with no certainty over what will happen within Nnamdi Kanu. What do you think might be the outcome in October? Do you think Nnamdi Kanu will take a walk, or you think that they will find a way to delay him again in detention?
In October, the court is going to determine whether he has a case to answer or not. I remember the Supreme Court decision was that he has a case to answer, he has to undergo trial, no matter the manner of his abduction. So it will be very difficult for the court to let him go at this point. The court would like to hear the evidence from the defense side, because for the no case of mission to be entered now means that the prosecution has laid down all their evidence before the court, and the defense is saying we don't have anything to say because they have not made out any case against our client, and so the burden of proof beyond reasonable doubt is on the prosecution, and they have not discharged that burden. If the court feels that there's this burden of proof beyond reasonable doubt is not discharged, the court might call for the defense to enter the evidence. Because at this stage, what the prosecution need to prove is just that there's a prima facie case against Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. It doesn't have to go all the whole hog or prove beyond reasonable doubt. Now, if he enters defense and the court feels that there are doubts in the case of the prosecution, that all the evidence laid by the prosecution has been rebutted by the defense, it is only then that the court may discharge and acquit him on his merits. But at this stage, I think the court would like to know what they have to say as a defense towards all the evidence the federal government has laid down. That is what I think. That is without prejudice to what the court will decide in October. Like I said, cases are decided based on the worldview of the judge, based on the judge's own experience with the law, and his own understanding of the facts and issues before it. So it could go either way. But I'm not privy to all the evidence that was laid in the case because I was not in court. But it is in rare cases that a criminal case of this magnitude is truncated at the stage of no case submission. It is very rare.
So typically, should everyone take this to mean that Nnamdi Kanu is walking a tightrope?
Yes, very tightrope. Very tightrope. At this stage, very tightrope. So my advice to the defense lawyers is, once the decision comes down in October and it's not favorable, they should hurry up to put down their evidence so that we can know his fate within a reasonable time. They should see how Finland has been able to deal with Simon Ekpa's own without much delay. He was arrested November last year. Trial began in May, and 1st of September, judgment. That is how a serious legal system should work. there's no reason why we continue to drag this trial ad infinitum. You know? So if it's not favorable in October, they should hurry up and present their evidence. I like the rate at which the court was taking it week by week when the prosecution was presenting their case. They should follow that same stride during defense so that we can run this thing through and let's see exactly whether there's a case against him. And if there's no case against him, the court will let him go.
So, okay, let's operate with the scenario that maybe the court, without of course preempting what the court will decide, if Nnamdi Kanu is let go, what do you think will be the implications for that in the southeast? Will it be for good or will it be for worse?
I think it will be for good because, you know, he has a very organic followership among the southeast, especially among the youths. It will be for good because we have the opportunity to see whether we can make some interventions in these communities where there's still a lot of kidnapping, a lot of violence and all that. He should be able to visit those areas and talk to the youth. It will be for good, you know. So now if he is let go at this stage and the federal government does not go on appeal, then it's political settlement. Otherwise, the federal government still has that right to go to an appeal in Court of Appeal, and from there also straight to Supreme Court. So it's still a long haul. So if it's let loose now, and the federal government leaves the matter at that point, that's political settlement, because that means they are no more willing to exhaust the legal length that they can go. But certainly, his release will go a long way to solve the insecurity problem we have in South. Remember, the insecurity problem started because of his extraordinary rendition, and people were protesting against it, and from protesting against it, they have taken to violence, just doing things they think can disturb the system so that attention could be paid to them. But because of the peculiar geographical entity where they come from, federal government is not paying attention. Federal government is not paying attention because it's Igbo land. Federal government has this systematic neglect for Igbo land and Igbo people, so they don't care. But if it were to be in the West, you see how that of Igbo was handled. You see, so it's okay. That is the way what we find ourselves, and that is exactly why we keep having one agitation group or the other, because of the unfair treatment of Nigeria against the Igbo people. And unless this is addressed, the agitation will still continue.
All right, let's talk about the involvement of state actors, because we've been talking about non-state actors. Almost every governor from the southeast that goes to Abuja will tell you that he met the president and he asked for the release of Nnamdi Kanu. Are we inclined to believe that these governors made these interventions? And if they did, why is it that we haven't seen any fruit of those interventions they've made?
I know that some of them made interventions. I know when the Enugu state governor, as soon as he was sworn into office, went to Abuja on Nnamdi Kanu. I also know when the governor of Anambra State, Professor Soludo, went also to make his own intervention. But the problem with those interventions are that the people that are closest to the president are the ones foiling these interventions. The people like the Minister for Works, David Omai, some people like Hope Uzodinma. You remember that it was when David Omai was the governor of Ebonyi State that IPOB was prescribed. They were prescribed just for marching with flags and chanting freedom songs. So in his usual way, he felt that they were trying to scuttle his ambition to get into national politics. Because he had the ambition to get into national politics, he felt that those who were talking about fair treatment for Ndimbo were trying to annoy the federal government. So to pacify the federal government and to appear to be politically correct, he galvanized all the 5 eastern state governors to Enugu and then they proscribed IPOB and branded it terrorist organization. That gave the leeway to Buhari to mobilize federal forces against the innocent agitators who were just exercising their right under the law. At that stage, they were not picking any arms against the Nigerian state. They were not violent. They were just acting within their rights under international law. Non-violent agitation for self-determination. That was all they were doing. But because of the political leaders at the time were stooges of the federal government and northern hegemony, they were, as a matter of fact, saboteurs of the Igbo cause. That was why they set them up for proscription by the federal government. That proscription shouldn't have come at all, because you cannot proscribe a non-violent organization. Look at what is happening in the north with Boko Haram, the way they picked arms against the federal government, eyeball to eyeball, sacking villages, killing people, kidnapping people, even people that are on the railway, the train, derailing train, and doing all manner of things against the economic and territorial integrity of Nigeria. But no northern governor has raised a voice for their proscription. None. No northern governor has called them terrorists, even though everybody knows they are. No northern governor, no political elite in the north has called them terrorists, not even bandits. They say that they are businessmen, that they are agitating about something, that the federal government should listen to them and settle with them. That is all they keep saying. But here in the east, it is our own political leaders led by Dave Umahi that had to set our own people up for proscription. And Buhari cashed in on this. Buhari has a morbid hatred for the Igbo tribe. And then he's cashed in on that opportunity. And that was when the crackdown on these innocent agitators started. And of course, many of them were not trained to endure such harassment. Many of them were not trained on the principles of non-violent movement. So they just joined the movement not knowing how to practice it. Immediately the harassment came, some of them resisted and picked up arms. And that was where we are today. So political actors are the problem we have in Southeast. And they are still the problem. I mean, political actors like the people I've mentioned. There are others who are trying their best to see whether there could be a political settlement, like the Enugu state government, like the Anambra state governor, and the rest of them. But those closest to the president, like Wike, Umahi, and Ozodimma, they have not allowed this to happen. And I believe that if they can come together to work with the other Southeast governors, that the president could be persuaded to have a political solution to this problem.
So is it safe to believe that, well, that the key is with the state actors closing ranks? But we don't see that happening anytime soon. The Southeast Governors Forum, I'm not sure they've met this year, have they?
They have not met.
So how are they now going to intervene? Because at the end of the day, if Nnamdi Kanu is to get a fair deal, there has to be a high-level negotiation from state actors this time, the governors, the National Assembly caucus of the Southeast. Do you see that happening? Because what we currently see is that you have the governors closing ranks in cliques. You have two APC governors, and then you have one APGA governor, one PDP governor, and one Labour Party governor, and they are not quite a group. It's problematic. I mean, no matter the pretense, we are not seeing the rapport. How do you think we can come to the point where the Southeast Governors Forum will call a meeting with the Southeast Caucus of the National Assembly, and they have a discussion and they ask the president what they want? Is it such a big ask to ask to put it forward to the president to release Nnamdi Kanu? Is it impossible?
It's not impossible, and it's not difficult. The problem we have with Southeast governors is that of self-interest, aggrandizement, and this issue of who will lead such delegation. Because whoever will lead such delegation will be seen by the president as the leader of the Southeast Caucus of Governors. And so who will lead? And so it's like a ego trip. Somebody like Professor Soludo will be wondering whether is it Ebonyi State Governor that will lead him, or is it Enugu Governor that will lead him. Most of them will say that he's the oldest governor in Southeast. Is this the governor that just came in 2 years ago that will lead him to Aso Rock? Or the Enugu State Governor will be feeling that he cannot be led by Uzodinma, who is less than popular in his own state. Such a person cannot really to tent his image in his state. That is the problem we have with Southeast governors. There's no rallying point, and there's no cohesion. They don't even have confidence in one another. And that's why the Southeast Governors Forum has not been sitting. And that's supposed to be a very powerful force to galvanize towards the center. But they don't have. It's not existing. Look at our Southeast Caucus in the House of Assembly, in the House of Representatives. Look at Southeast Caucus in the Senate. Are they meeting? We have never heard them talk about this issue, most important issue about release of Nnamdi Kanu. They are all there to earn their salary, earn their emoluments, and prepare for the next election. That is all they are there for. So the political actors have failed the people of our Southeast most dishonorably, and I do not even see any respite in view, because they are a bunch of self-righteous people who do not believe that they are doing anything wrong, and who cannot even have anybody talk to them or correct them about these things. There should be a rallying point, but I have not seen any. There's nobody in the Senate that could galvanize the rest of the Southeast Caucus members in the Senate to take that step. Nobody in the House of Reps, all because they are now on this ego trip of who will lead the order. And it should not be so. In the House, they normally have this issue of seniority. You know, the most senior member of the House who should lead the others. And that is why it is reserved for, before you become a speaker or the president of the Senate, you must have been in the Senate or in the House for a number of years. You can't be a first-timer. So those who are first-timers should learn to be under those who are senior to them in the House or in the Senate. But this is not happening. So that is the problem we have in the Southeast, and we're going to remain with this problem for a long time, because the class of people we have got now as governors in Southeast are less than what the people need. Apart from Enugu and Abia, that are giving people the dividend of democracy, others are just wobbling, you know, trying to, in fact, even their public statements are nothing to write home about. It breeds discontent and destroys cohesion. So the only light we see is Enugu and Abia. And unfortunately, the other people whose lights are dimmed cannot follow the light that are being shown by Enugu and Abia. And that is why we are where we are today.
That's why the Southeast is where it is today. But what do you think is the role of the people in all this? Because at the end of the day, everybody is saying Southeast this, Southeast that. What's the role of the people in this? The people's role has been stolen by the political gladiators. Because over the years, the people have always been denied their power, that most important power to choose their leaders. Because our leadership recruitment process have been faulty from inception. We have never been able to organize a simple, free and fair election. Because INEC as an institution is most corrupt and is always there for the highest bidder. And so each time people come out to choose their leaders, this INEC scuttles every effort made by people to choose their leaders. So the ability or the power of the people to choose their leaders and the efforts they make to choose their leaders meet with systematic failure, because the institution started with the responsibility of making sure that their right of choice is honored and upheld, diminish this right of choice. And you see that at the end of every electoral cycle, the people are disillusioned and they just have resigned to fate, because there's nothing else they can do. Otherwise, they will be seen as confronting the system or confronting the government, and of course, they will be met with serious
hard and violent reprisal that is customary